When struggling designer Nia Caldwell walks into the wrong office at Morningstar Fashion, she doesn't just meet CEO Lucien Vale, she accidentally steps into a life-changing opportunity and the arms of a man with secrets that could shatter them both. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Nia Caldwell took a deep breath as she stared up at the towering glass building. Morningstar Fashion Group's headquarters seemed to touch the clouds, intimidating and beautiful all at once, just like the world she was trying so desperately to enter. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, clutching her folder of resumes tightly against her chest. The security guard barely glanced at her as she walked through the revolving doors. She'd spent hours the night before putting together her outfit, a navy blue blazer from the thrift store, her one good white blouse, and her most professional-looking skirt. Her dark curly hair was pulled back neatly, and she'd applied just enough makeup to look polished but not overdone. The lobby was packed with beautiful people rushing in every direction. Models, designers, executives, all of them looking like they belonged. Not like Nia, who felt like an imposter with every step she took. She checked the email on her phone one more time. Assistant to the marketing director, 10th floor, interview. At 10 a.m. This was her first job interview in months and she desperately needed it. Her bank account was nearly empty, her rent was due next week, and her dream of becoming a fashion designer seemed further away each day. The elevator was crowded with people who smelled expensive. Nia pressed herself into the corner, trying to be invisible. When the doors opened, she got confused by the crowd and stepped out, only to realize too late that she'd gotten off on the wrong floor. The sign on the wall read, "Executive level." "Oh, no," she muttered, turning to get back on the elevator. But the doors had already closed. Nia looked at her watch. 9:50 a.m. No time to waste. She spotted a young woman at a desk. "Excuse me," Nia said, approaching her. "I'm looking for the marketing department. I have an interview at 10. The woman looked up with a practiced smile. "You're on the wrong floor. Marketing is on 10. This is the executive floor. Could you point me to the stairs or another elevator? Take a right at the end of this hallway, then a left. You'll find another bank of elevators." "Thank you," Nia said, already hurrying away. She followed the directions, turning right at the end of the hallway. But when she turned left, she found herself in a corridor with several identical doors. No elevators in sight. She was lost. Panic began to rise in her chest. She was going to be late. She was going to miss her interview. She needed this job. Spotting a door that was slightly ajar, she decided to ask for help again. She knocked gently and pushed it open. "Excuse me, I'm a bit lost." The room was large and sunlit with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. A massive glass desk dominated the space. The walls were adorned with framed magazine covers and artistic black-and-white photographs of fashion shows. It was empty except for a sleek conference table where a folder lay open. It looked like an interview room. Maybe they'd moved her interview up here. Nia hesitated, then checked the time again. 9:57 a.m. She had no time to find the right place. Taking a deep breath, she decided to sit down and wait. At exactly 10 a.m., the door opened. A man walked in, and Nia's breath caught in her throat. He was tall and lean, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal grey suit. His dark hair was styled back from his face, revealing sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw. But it was his eyes that struck her most. Steel blue and intense, they seemed to hold a weight, a sadness that didn't match his powerful presence. This was Lucien Vale, the CEO of Morningstar Fashion Group. His face was on the covers of business magazines. He was only 30 years old and already one of the most powerful men in the fashion industry, and Nia was sitting in his office. She jumped to her feet, her folder slipping from her hands, papers scattering across the polished floor. "I'm so sorry," she blurted out, dropping to her knees to gather the fallen resumes. "I got lost and I didn't realize." Lucien Vale said nothing. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable. Then, to her surprise, he knelt down and helped her collect the papers. "Thank you," she mumbled, mortified. He stood, handing her the papers he'd gathered. Their fingers brushed for a brief moment, and Nia felt a strange jolt. "You're here for the interview?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth. Nia hesitated. She should explain the mix-up. But something in his eyes made her pause. "Yes," she said, before she could stop herself. He gestured to the chair she'd been sitting in. "Please sit down." Nia sat, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. This was wrong. She shouldn't be here. But she couldn't bring herself to leave. Lucien Vale didn't sit behind the desk as she expected. Instead, he took the chair beside her, turning it slightly to face her. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "I'm Nia Caldwell. I graduated from State University 2 years ago with a degree in fashion design. I've been working retail since then, but I'm eager to start my career in the industry." He nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "Why fashion?" The question surprised her. It wasn't what interviewers usually asked. They wanted to know about her experience, her skills, her availability. "I've loved it since I was a little girl," she said honestly. "My mum was a seamstress. She worked for a local alterations shop, fixing other people's clothes. But she taught me that fashion was more than that. It was about dreams, about becoming who you want to be." A flicker of something passed across Lucien's face. Interest, perhaps. "Did you design as a child?" he asked. Nia smiled, remembering. "All the time. My school notebooks had more dress sketches than notes. My teachers would get so mad." "Show me," he said, pointing to her folder. "I don't have any of my old sketches," she said, confused. "Your current ones, then." Nia hesitated, then pulled out a few sketches she'd included with her resume. Simple designs she thought might appeal to a marketing department. Lucien studied them carefully. "These aren't your real designs," he said after a moment. "What?" she asked, taken aback. "These are what you think we want to see. Safe, commercial. Where are your real designs?" "The ones that come from here?" He touched his chest lightly. Nia stared at him, stunned. How could he know? Slowly, she reached into her folder and pulled out a sketchbook she'd brought for luck. It was worn and dog-eared, filled with designs she'd never show in an interview. Designs that were too bold, too different, too personal. She handed it to him without a word. Lucien flipped through the pages slowly, his expression changing as he took in her work. For 20 minutes they sat in silence as he examined every sketch, every note, every idea she'd poured onto those pages. "These are remarkable," he said finally, looking up at her. "You see things differently. That's rare." No one had ever looked at her work that way before. No one had ever really seen it. "Thank you," she whispered. "What do you want, Nia Caldwell?" he asked, leaning slightly forward. "A job," she answered automatically. He shook his head. "No." "What do you really want?" The question hung in the air between them. Nia felt as if she was standing on the edge of something important. "I want to create," she said finally. "I want to make things that matter to people, things that make them feel seen and beautiful and powerful." Lucien Vale smiled for the first time, and it transformed his face completely. The sadness in his eyes didn't disappear, but it was joined by something warmer, something almost like hope. "Why did you come here today?" he asked, and suddenly reality came crashing back. Nia realized what she had done. She had sat in the CEO's office, pretending to be interviewing for a position she hadn't even applied for. "I'm so sorry," she said, standing up quickly. "There's been a mistake. I was supposed to be interviewing for an assistant position in marketing. I got lost and I ended up here and I didn't realize who you were at first, and then I'm so sorry." She gathered her things, her face burning with embarrassment. She had ruined everything. She would never get a job here now. But Lucien Vale didn't look angry. He was watching her with that same intense gaze, as if he was seeing something no one else could. "You didn't walk into the wrong room," he said quietly. "You walked into mine, and I think that matters more than anything you came here for." Nia froze, her folder clutched against her chest. "I don't understand," she said. Lucien stood, towering over her slightly. "I think you were meant to be here, Nia Caldwell. In this room. Today." "For what?" "That remains to be seen." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "My direct number is on the back. I'd like to continue our conversation." Nia took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. "What about the assistant position?" "Oh, I'm sure they've hired someone by now," he said with a small smile. "But I have a feeling you're meant for something else." He walked her to the door, his hand hovering near the small of her back but not quite touching her. "Thank you for your time, Ms. Caldwell," he said formally as they reached the hallway. "I look forward to hearing from you." And then he was gone, leaving Nia standing in the hallway of the executive floor, holding the business card of Lucienne Vale, wondering if she had imagined the entire encounter. The elevator ride down to the lobby was a blur. Nia's mind was spinning. What had just happened? What did Lucienne Vale want from her? Was this some kind of joke? As she pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out onto the busy sidewalk, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Dinner. Tonight. 8 p.m. I'll send a car. LV." Nia stared at the message, her heart racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her, but as she clutched her sketchbook against her chest, she knew that something had changed. Something had begun, and whether it was fate or accident or something else entirely, Nia Caldwell had walked into Lucienne Vale's world, and he didn't want her to leave. Nia paced back and forth in her tiny apartment, staring at her phone every few seconds. The text message from Lucienne Vale still seemed impossible. "Dinner tonight with the CEO of Morningstar Fashion Group." "This is crazy," she said out loud to her empty apartment. I should cancel, but she didn't. Instead, she stood in front of her closet, frantically sorting through the few nice pieces she owned. Nothing seemed right for dinner with a billionaire. Her roommate Tasha walked in just as Nia was trying on her third outfit. "Hot date?" Tasha asked, dropping her nursing textbooks on the kitchen counter. "Not exactly," Nia replied, chewing her lip. "Remember that job interview I had today? The assistant thing? How'd it go?" Nia laughed nervously. "I ended up in the wrong room and accidentally interviewed with the CEO of the entire company." Tasha's eyes widened. "You're kidding. And now he's invited me to dinner. Tonight. Lucienne Vale, the Lucienne Vale?" Tasha grabbed Nia's phone to read the text message. "Oh my God, this is like a movie." "It's probably just business," Nia said, though she didn't quite believe it herself. There had been something in Lucienne's eyes when he looked at her. Something that had nothing to do with business. "Wear the red dress," Tasha said decisively, pulling it from the back of Nia's closet. "The one you made for your final project." Nia's hand touched the soft fabric. It was the best thing she'd ever designed. A simple but elegant dress with clever seaming that made it look much more expensive than it was. "I don't know." "Trust me," Tasha insisted. "You look amazing in it. And it shows him what you can do." At 7:45 p.m., a sleek black car pulled up outside their building. The driver, a serious-looking man in a dark suit, opened the door for Nia. "Good evening, Ms. Caldwell. Mr. Vale is waiting for you." The restaurant was on the top floor of a boutique hotel with glass walls that offered a panoramic view of the city lights. Nia felt her stomach flutter as she was led to a private table in the corner. Lucienne Vale stood when he saw her, his eyes widening slightly as he took in her appearance. "Ms. Caldwell," he said, his voice low. "You look stunning." "Thank you," she said, trying to hide her nervousness. "And please, call me Nia." "Nia," he repeated, as if testing the sound of her name on his lips. "I'm glad you came." "I almost didn't," she admitted as she sat down. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Why?" "Because this is unusual." She gestured between them. "I'm supposed to be an assistant applicant. You're the CEO. People don't just skip all the steps." In between, Lucienne studied her for a moment. "I've never been particularly concerned with what people are supposed to do." A waiter appeared with 2 glasses of champagne, and Lucienne raised his in a small toast. "To unusual beginnings," he said. Nia took a sip, the bubbles tickling her nose. The champagne probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "So tell me why you were really at Morningstar today," Lucienne said, setting down his glass. Nia sighed. "The truth? I need a job, any job. I've been trying to break into fashion design since I graduated, but no one will give me a chance. The assistant position was a way to get my foot in the door." Lucienne nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The industry can be brutal." "I'm learning that," she said with a rueful smile. "What about your designs? The ones in your sketchbook? Have you shown them to anyone?" Nia shook her head. They're not commercial enough, at least that's what I've been told. By people who lack vision, Lucian said dismissively. Easy for you to say. You're Lucian Vale. You can do whatever you want. Something darkened in his eyes. Not everything. There was a weight to his words that made Naya curious. Who was this man, really? Behind the power and the wealth and the perfect suit, what made Lucian Vale tick? Before she could ask, their food arrived. Delicate dishes with artistic presentations that Nia was almost afraid to disturb. As they ate, the conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Lucienne asked about her childhood, her family, her dreams. And Nia found herself telling him things she rarely shared with anyone. My dad left when I was 10, she said, pushing her dessert around on her plate. It was just me and my mom after that. She worked so hard to give me everything I needed. She's the one who taught me to sew. Where is she now? Lucian asked. Nia's face fell. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. Lucian's expression changed, a flash of genuine pain crossing his features. I'm sorry. I know what it's like to lose someone you love. For a moment, the mask of the powerful CEO slipped, and Nia caught a glimpse of the man underneath. A man who had suffered, who understood grief. Who did you lose? She asked softly. Lucienne hesitated, as if deciding whether to answer. My sister, Elise, 3 years ago. I'm sorry, Nia said, instinctively reaching across the table to touch his hand. Lucienne stared at their hands for a long moment, then gently turned his palm up to clasp hers. The touch sent a current through Nia's body. What was she like? Nia asked. A small, sad smile appeared on Lucienne's face. Brilliant, fearless. She wasn't afraid of anything or anyone, not even me. Were you close? Very. After our parents died, it was just the two of us. I practically raised her. His voice grew quiet. And then I failed her. Nia wanted to ask what he meant, but the pain in his eyes stopped her. Whatever had happened to Elise, Lucienne blamed himself for it. He cleared his throat, visibly pulling himself together. Enough about the past. Tell me about your future, Nia Caldwell. What do you want most in the world? To design, she said without hesitation. To create a collection that's truly mine. Something that means something. And what's stopping you? Reality, she said with a short laugh. Money, connections, opportunity. Take your pick. Lucian leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. What if I could change that? Nia's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I mean, what if I could give you the chance to design your own small collection? Under the Morning Star umbrella, Nia stared at him, certain she had misheard. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about business, Nia. But why would you do that? You don't even know me. Lucian's expression softened slightly. I know enough. I know talent when I see it. And I've seen how this industry crushes originality. Maybe I want to change that. It was too much, too perfect, too impossible. What's the catch? Nia asked, pulling her hand away from his. Lucienne sat back, something like respect flickering in his eyes. No catch. But there are conditions. I'm listening. You would work directly with me, no intermediaries, no committees, just your vision and my resources. And you would need to be available, day or night. Fashion doesn't keep regular hours. Nia narrowed her eyes. Is this really about fashion, Mr. Vale? Lucien's gaze was steady. What else would it be about? The air between them seemed to thicken. Nia wasn't naive. A powerful man offering a young woman an incredible opportunity usually wanted something in return. I'm not going to sleep with you for a job, she said bluntly. To her surprise, Lucian laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed his face. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to trust me, he said simply, to take a chance, the same way I'm taking a chance on you. Nia studied his face, trying to read his intentions. She had always prided herself on being a good judge of character, but Lucienne Vale was a mystery. Why me? She asked finally. Of all the designers out there, why pick someone who walked into your office by mistake? Lucienne was quiet for a long moment. Because when you showed me your sketches, I saw something I haven't seen in a very long time. Honesty, passion, a unique way of looking at the world. He paused. And because when you talked about losing your mother, you understood something most people in my life don't. What's that? What it means to put on a brave face when your heart is breaking. The words hung in the air between them, startlingly vulnerable from such a powerful man. I'll think about it, Nia said finally. Fair enough. Lucian signaled for the check. As they left the restaurant, a light rain had begun to fall. The city glistened around them, streets slick and reflective. I'll have my driver take you home, Lucian said, guiding Nia toward the waiting car with a light touch at the small of her back. Thank you for dinner and for the offer. Lucian nodded, his face half illuminated by the city lights. I meant what I said, Nia. I believe in your talent. Even after seeing just a few sketches, sometimes a few sketches is all it takes. As the car pulled away from the curb, Nia looked back to see Lucien standing on the sidewalk, watching her. Rain beginning to darken the shoulders of his expensive suit. The next morning, Nia woke to her phone ringing. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hello? She answered groggily. Ms. Caldwell, this is Angela Porter, Mr. Vale's assistant. He's asked me to set up a meeting with you today to discuss your new position at Morningstar. Nia sat bolt upright. But I haven't accepted any position. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I see. Well, Mr. Vale seems to think otherwise. He's cleared his schedule at 2 p.m. specifically to meet with you. He's very confident, Nia muttered. That's one way to put it, Angela replied. And Nia thought she detected a hint of amusement in the woman's voice. Shall I tell him you'll be there? Nia hesitated. This was happening so fast. Too fast. But wasn't this exactly what she had been dreaming of? A chance to design? To prove herself? Yes, she said finally. I'll be there. At 1:45 p.m., Nia found herself back in the towering glass building, this time with a visitor's badge clipped to her jacket. Angela Porter, a crisp, efficient woman in her 40s, met her in the lobby. Mr. Vale is running a few minutes late, she explained as they rode the elevator. He asked that you wait in his office. Lucian's office was even more impressive in the daylight, spacious and minimalist with original artwork on the walls and a view that stretched for miles. Can I get you anything? Angela asked. Coffee, water. Water would be great, thank you. As Angela left, Nia wandered around the office, examining the photos on the walls. Most were artistic shots of Morningstar fashion shows and campaigns, but one in a simple silver frame on Lucien's desk caught her eye. It showed a younger Lucien with his arm around a beautiful young woman with the same blue eyes. She was laughing at the camera, her face full of life and joy. This must be Elise, Nia realized, Lucien's sister. She was beautiful, wasn't she? Nia jumped, nearly dropping the frame. Lucien stood in the doorway watching her. I'm sorry, Nia said, hastily replacing the photo. I didn't mean to snoop. It's all right, he said, crossing the room. That was taken 6 months before the accident. Accident? Lucien's jaw tightened. A car crash. She was in my car. I should have been driving, but I'd had a drink at dinner, so I let her take the wheel. A truck ran a red light. She died instantly. The pain in his voice was raw, even 3 years later. It wasn't your fault, Nia said softly. Wasn't it? Lucien turned away, walking to the window. I was responsible for her, ever since our parents died. Nia didn't know what to say. There was nothing that could ease that kind of guilt, that kind of grief. After a moment, Lucien turned, back to her, his business mask firmly back in place. But you're not here to talk about my sister. You're here to talk about your future at Morningstar. I haven't said yes yet, Nia reminded him. But you will, he said with quiet confidence. You seem very sure of that. I'm sure of you, Nia Caldwell. His voice softened. I saw the way your eyes lit up when I offered you the chance to design. That's not something you'll walk away from. He was right, and they both knew it. What exactly are you offering me? She asked. Lucien crossed to his desk and picked up a folder. A 6-month contract. You'll design a capsule collection of 15 pieces under the Morningstar label. You'll have a budget, a small team, and access to our resources. If the collection is successful, we'll discuss a more permanent arrangement. Nia took the folder, with trembling hands. And what do you get out of this? Lucien's eyes met hers. Fresh talent, new ideas, a reminder of why I got into this business in the first place. And what is that? To create something beautiful. He paused. Before Elise died, Morningstar was going to launch a new division, younger, more experimental designs. It was her idea. After she was gone, I couldn't bear to move forward with it, but maybe it's time. Nia understood then. This wasn't just about her or her designs. It was about Lucien's sister, about honoring her memory, about healing. I'll do it, she said quietly. Relief flashed across Lucien's face, quickly replaced by his usual composed expression. Good. You start tomorrow. Angela will show you to your new office. As Nia turned to leave, Lucien called after her. Nia. She looked back at him. Wear something you've designed tomorrow. I want everyone here to see what you can do. That night, as Nia packed up her meager belongings from the retail job she no longer needed, she still couldn't quite believe what had happened. In just 2 days, her life had completely changed. When she arrived home, there was a large, flat box waiting outside her apartment door. No sender name, just her address. Inside was a piece of cream-colored stationery with a handwritten note. If you walked into my heart the way you walked into that room, I wouldn't ask you to leave. Beneath the note was a bolt of the most beautiful midnight blue silk Nia had ever seen. She pressed the fabric to her face, inhaling its rich scent, her mind already racing with designs. Tomorrow she would step into Lucien Vale's world for real, and everything would change. Nia's first day at Morningstar started with a flurry of activity. She had stayed up most of the night, transforming the midnight blue silk from Lucien into her simple but elegant blouse with subtle detailing at the collar and cuffs. Paired with her best black pants and heels, she hoped it sent the right message. I belong here. The security guard recognized her this time, nodding as she walked in with her new employee badge. The lobby still intimidated her, but she held her head high as she made her way to the elevator. Angela Porter was waiting for her on the executive floor. Good morning, Ms. Caldwell. I'll show you to your office. I have an office? Nia asked, unable to hide her surprise. Angela's lips twitched in an almost smile. Mr. Vale was quite specific about your accommodations. Nia followed Angela down a hallway, past several busy workrooms where designers and seamstresses were hard at work. People looked up as she passed, curiosity in their eyes. News traveled fast in the fashion world, and everyone must be wondering who she was and why she'd been hired out of nowhere. Angela stopped at a glass door and opened it with a key card, which she then handed to Nia. This is yours now. The office was smaller than Lucien's, of course, but still impressive. Bright and airy, with a large drafting table, a computer workstation, and a dress form in the corner. One wall was lined with fabric samples, and a large mood board hung empty, waiting for inspiration. This is incredible, Nia breathed, running her fingers along the drafting table. Mr. Vale will be in shortly to discuss your first assignment, Angela said. Can I get you anything in the meantime? I'm fine, thank you. As Angela left, Nia walked slowly around the space, taking it all in. Just days ago, she'd been folding sweaters at a retail job. Now she had her own design office at Morningstar Fashion Group. It was like a dream. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Lucien stood in the doorway, as impeccably dressed as always in a navy suit that made his blue eyes even more striking. Good morning, he said, his gaze taking in her appearance. That's a beautiful blouse. Nia smiled, feeling a small flush of pride. Thank you, I made it last night. Something flickered in Lucien's eyes. Approval, perhaps, or something more. It suits you. He crossed to the drafting table, setting down a thick folder. These are the parameters for your collection. Target demographic, budget constraints, timeline. I've arranged for you to have 2 assistants, but you'll need to interview them. Nia opened the folder, scanning the first page. A spring collection? That's only 5 months away. Too soon, Lucien challenged, a slight edge to his voice. No, Nia said quickly. I can do it. Good. Because I've already cleared a slot in the spring lineup. Your collection will debut on February 14th. Valentine's Tay, the symbolism wasn't lost on Nia. I won't let you down, she promised. I know. Lucian's confidence in her was both terrifying and exhilarating. As he turned to leave, Nia gathered her courage. Thank you for the silk, she said softly. And the note. Lucian paused, his back to her for a long moment before he turned. The silk was a business expense, he said, his tone professional. The note was personal. I shouldn't have sent it. Why did you? Nia asked. Because it's true. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. You've made an impression, Nia Caldwell. More. Then you know. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone with her thoughts and a mountain of work ahead. The next few weeks passed in a blur of sketches, fabric samples, and meetings. Nia hired 2 assistants. Riley, a recent fashion school graduate with excellent technical skills, and Zoe, a former stylist with an eye for accessories. Together, they began to bring Nia's vision to life. The collection was taking shape as a celebration of everyday women, elegant but comfortable pieces that made the wearer feel special. Nia drew inspiration from her mother, from the women she'd known growing up who worked hard but still wanted to feel beautiful. Lucien kept his distance during those weeks, communicating mostly through Angela or brief emails. But Nia often felt his presence. Sometimes she'd look up to see him watching her work through the glass walls of her office, his expression unreadable. Other times, she'd find notes on her designs, small suggestions, or simply approved LV. One evening, as Nia worked, late finalizing her sketches, a knock at her office door startled her. It was nearly 10 o'clock and most of the building was empty. Come in, she called, expecting the night security guard. Instead, Lucien entered, his tie loosened and jacket gone, looking more casual than she'd ever seen him. You're still here, he said, sounding pleased. Deadline tomorrow, Nia explained, gesturing to the sketches spread across her table. Lucien crossed to examine them, his shoulder brushing against hers as he leaned in. The contact sent a jolt through Nia's body. These are excellent, he said, picking up one sketch in particular, a flowing evening dress with subtle detailing at the waist. Especially this one. That's my favorite too, Nia admitted. Have you eaten? Lucien asked suddenly. I had a granola bar around 4. Nia glanced at the clock, realizing how hungry she was. That won't do. Lucien reached for his phone. I'll order something. You don't have to. I insist. His tone brooked no argument. Chinese, okay? 30 minutes later, they sat cross-legged, on the floor of Nia's office, surrounded by takeout containers and design sketches. So tell me more about this piece, Lucien said, pointing to the evening dress with his chopsticks. It's inspired by my mom, actually, Nia said, setting down her carton of noodles. She always said every woman deserves at least one dress that makes her feel like the most beautiful person in the room. She sounds wise, Lucien said. She was. Nia smiled sadly. She would have loved to see me here. Working at Morningstar was her dream for me. And your dream for yourself? Nia considered the question. To create something that lasts, something meaningful. Is that why you became a designer? Partly, Nia acknowledged, but also because fashion helped me through the hardest times in my life. After my mum died, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't eat or sleep or even talk to my friends. But I could sketch. I could create. It kept me going. Lucien was quiet for a moment. I understand, he said finally. After Elise died, work was the only thing that made sense, the only thing I could control. Does it still hurt? 3 years later? Nia asked gently. Every day. Lucien's voice was raw. Some days less than others, but it's always there. For me too, Nia said. The grief, I mean. It changes, but it doesn't go away. Their eyes met in a moment of perfect understanding. Without thinking, Nia reached out and took Lucien's hand. He stiffened for a second, then relaxed, his fingers curling around hers. I haven't talked about Elise with anyone in a long time, he admitted. Why me? Lucien looked at their intertwined hands. Because you don't look at me and see Lucien Vale, CEO. You just see me. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Lucien's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at it and sighed. "I have to take this," he said, releasing her hand reluctantly. "Board member in Tokyo?" Nia nodded, suddenly very aware of where they were, her office after hours alone together. "I should finish these sketches anyway," she said, standing and brushing off her pants. Lucienne rose as well, towering over her. Slightly. "Nia," he said, his voice low. "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me there's more to life than balance sheets and profit margins." He left before she could respond, the warmth of his hand lingering on hers. The next morning, Nia arrived at her office to find a small box on her desk with a note, "For the late night." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny sketchpad and pencil. Riley noticed it immediately when she arrived. "Nice bracelet. New." "A gift," Nia said vaguely, tucking it under her sleeve. "From the boss?" Riley asked, raising an eyebrow. "It's not like that," Nia insisted, though she wasn't entirely sure what it was. "Uh-huh." Riley didn't look convinced. "Just be careful, okay? Office romances can get complicated, especially when there's a power imbalance." "It's not a romance," Nia said firmly. "It's professional." But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Whatever was happening between her and Lucian Vale went beyond professional interest. And it terrified her as much as it thrilled her. As the weeks passed, Nia's collection began to take physical form. Fabric was cut, patterns were made, and samples were sewn. She worked tirelessly, often staying late into the night and arriving early the next morning. Lucien continued to keep his distance during working hours, but almost every night when Nia worked late, he would appear with food and conversation. They never talked about the growing tension between them, focusing instead on the collection or sharing stories about their lives. Nia learned that Lucien had practically raised his sister after their parents died in a sailing accident when he was 22 and Elise was 16. He'd put aside his own dreams of being a designer to take over the family business and provide stability for her. She was the creative one, he told Nia one night as they reviewed fabric samples. "I was always better with numbers and strategy, but she could look at a blank canvas and see something no one else could. Like you," he added softly, his eyes meeting Nia's. Those moments, the quiet looks, the brush of hands, the late night conversations began to fill Nia's thoughts. But she reminded herself of the reality. She was a new designer with everything to prove. He was Lucien Vale, her boss and benefactor. The power imbalance was too great to ignore. Then came the night of the Morningstar holiday party, 3 months after Nia had started at the company. She wore one of her own designs, a deep green dress that hugged her curves before flowing gracefully to the floor. The party was held in the grand ballroom of a historic hotel, decorated with thousands of twinkling lights. Nia felt like she'd stepped into a fairy tale as she walked in, immediately spotting Lucien across the room in deep conversation with an older man she recognized as a board member. As if sensing her presence, Lucien looked up, his eyes finding hers instantly. The conversation around him continued, but he seemed frozen, his gaze locked with Nia's. After a moment, he excused himself and made his way through the crowd to her side. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." Nia smiled. "Is this okay?" She gestured to her dress. "I wanted to wear one of my designs." "It's perfect," Lucien assured her. "In fact, I think it's time to introduce you properly to everyone." Before Nia could protest, Lucien was leading her to the center of the room. He signaled to the band, which stopped playing, and the crowd fell silent. "Good evening, everyone," Lucien began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "As you know, Morningstar has always prided itself on finding and nurturing new talent. Tonight I want to introduce you to our newest designer, Nia Caldwell." Nia felt hundreds of eyes turn to her, curious and evaluating. "Ms. Caldwell will be debuting her first collection for Morningstar this spring," Lucien continued. "And if the dress she's wearing tonight is any indication, we have much to look forward to." A smattering of applause followed, though Nia could sense the skepticism in the room. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why had Lucienne Vale personally selected her? As the evening progressed, Nia found herself the center of attention, fielding questions from fashion journalists, board members, and other designers. Some were genuinely interested in her work. Others were clearly trying to figure out why she had been given such an opportunity. "So you just walked into Lucienne Vale's office by accident?" a reporter from Fashion Weekly asked, her tone disbelieving. "And he offered you a collection just like that?" "It wasn't quite that simple," Nia said diplomatically. "Mr. Vale saw potential in my work." "And nothing else?" The reporter pressed, her eyes sliding meaningfully to where Lucienne stood across the room watching them. Before Nia could respond, another voice cut in. "Nia, darling, you simply must meet Isabella," said an elegant older woman, taking Nia's arm and steering her away from the reporter. "She's the best pattern maker in the business, and you'll need her for that gorgeous evening gown in your collection." The woman, who introduced herself as Vivienne, turned out to be Morningstar's longest-serving designer. "Don't mind Cassandra," she said, nodding toward the reporter. "She's been trying to get dirt on Lucienne for years." "Thank you for the rescue," Nia said gratefully. "Of course, dear. We women in fashion need to stick together." Vivienne eyed her curiously. "Though I must say you've caused quite a stir. Lucienne hasn't personally endorsed a new designer in, well, ever." "He believes in my work," Nia said, repeating the line she'd been using all night. Vivienne gave her a knowing look. "I'm sure he does. But that's not all, is it?" She glanced across the room to where Lucienne was still watching them. "I've known that boy since he was in short pants. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Before Nia could respond, Vivienne patted her arm and moved on to greet another guest, leaving Nia with her thoughts. Later, as the party was winding down, Nia slipped out onto a balcony for a breath of fresh air. The night was cold but clear. The city spread out below her in a tapestry of lights. "Hiding?" Lucien's voice came from behind her. "Just taking a break," Nia said, turning to face him. "It's a lot to take in." Lucien joined her at the balcony railing, their shoulders nearly touching. "You did well tonight. You impressed a lot of people." "Including you?" Nia asked, her voice teasing. "Always," Lucien replied, his tone serious. Then, more lightly, "That dress is remarkable. You've outdone yourself." "It's one of my favorites from the collection," Nia admitted. "I can see why." Lucien's eyes traced the lines of the dress, lingering on the curves it accentuated. Nia felt a flush of heat despite the cold night air. "Lucien," she began, not sure what she wanted to say. "Yes," he prompted when she fell silent. "People are talking," she said finally, "about us, about why you chose me." Lucien's jaw tightened. "Let them talk. It's not that simple. This is my career. I need people to take me seriously, to see me as a designer, not as—" She trailed off. "Not as what?" Lucien asked, his voice dangerously soft. "Not as the girl who caught Lucienne Vale's eye," Nia finished. "Is that what you think this is? That I gave you this opportunity because I'm attracted to you, aren't you?" Nia challenged, turning to face him fully. Lucien's eyes darkened. "Yes," he admitted, "but that's not why I believed in you. That's not why I gave you this chance." "Then why?" "Because you're extraordinary, Nia." Lucienne took a step closer. "Because your designs have soul. Because when I look at your work, I see the same fire, the same vision that Elise had." The mention of his sister startled Nia. "So, I'm a replacement? A way for you to make up for what happened to her?" Pain flashed across Lucien's face. "No, you could never replace Elise. No one could." "Then what am I to you?" Nia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucien was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with emotion. "You're the first person who's made me feel anything in 3 years." Before Nia could respond, the balcony door opened and Angela stepped out. "Mr. Vale, sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Tanaka is leaving and would like to say goodbye." Lucien closed his eyes briefly, composing himself. "Of course. I'll be right there." Angela nodded and withdrew, but the moment was broken. "We should get back inside," Lucien said, his professional mask sliding back into place. "Lucien," Nia began. Not now, he said quietly. Please. Nia watched him walk away, her heart pounding. What had just happened? What had he meant? And more importantly, what did she want to happen next? As she followed him back into the ballroom, she noticed a woman watching them from across. The room, strikingly beautiful, with cold eyes and an assessing gaze. The woman raised her champagne glass slightly in Nia's direction, a calculating smile on her perfect red lips. Who is that? Nia asked Riley, who had appeared at her side. Riley followed her gaze and grimaced. Olivia Westbrook. She's the head of our biggest competitor, Westbrook Designs. She's staring at me. No, honey, Riley corrected. She's staring at Lucian. They used to be engaged until he broke it off about 2 years ago. Nia felt a chill. That had nothing to do with the December night. The way Olivia was looking at Lucien wasn't the gaze of someone who had moved on. It was the look of someone who considered him a possession that had been stolen, and now she was looking at Nia the same way. As the party ended and Nia prepared to leave, a hotel staff member approached her. Ms. Caldwell? This was left for you, at the front desk. It was a small envelope addressed to her in elegant handwriting. Nia opened it to find another piece of the now familiar cream stationery. Meet me tomorrow, noon. Central Park, Cherry Hill. We need to talk. Nia tucked the note into her clutch, her mind racing. Tomorrow would change everything one way or another. She could feel it. What she didn't see was Olivia Westbrook watching from across the lobby. Her eyes narrowed as Nia read the note. What she couldn't know was that Olivia had already set a plan in motion, a plan to destroy whatever was growing, between Nia Caldwell and Lucien Vale before it could truly begin. The next morning dawned bright and cold, with a thin layer of December frost coating the city. Nia had barely slept, Lucien's words from the balcony playing over and over in her mind. You're the first person who's made me feel anything in 3 years. She dressed carefully in jeans, boots, and a warm sweater, adding the coat she'd made herself last winter. As she fastened the silver bracelet Lucien had given her around her wrist, she wondered what today would bring. Would he take back what he'd said? Would he pretend nothing had happened? Or would he finally acknowledge the connection that had been growing between them since that first accidental meeting? Central Park was busy despite the cold, filled with joggers, tourists, and families enjoying the winter sunshine. Cherry Hill, with its picturesque views of the lake, was quieter. Nia arrived a few minutes early and found a bench to wait. At exactly noon, she saw Lucien walking toward her. He was dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him, in jeans and a dark peacoat, his usual polished appearance slightly softened. He looked younger, more approachable, and Nia's heart skipped a beat at the sight of him. You came, he said. As he reached her, sounding slightly surprised. Did you think I wouldn't? Nia asked. I wasn't sure. After last night. He trailed off, then gestured to the path ahead. Walk with me? They strolled in silence for a few minutes, their breath fogging in the cold air. Finally, Lucien spoke. I owe you an explanation, he said, and an apology. For what? Nia asked, her stomach tightening. For putting you in an uncomfortable position. For blurring the lines between professional and personal. He paused. I've handled this all wrong. And what exactly is this? Nia asked, stopping to face him. Lucien's blue eyes met hers, vulnerable, in a way she'd never seen before. I don't know, he admitted. That's the problem. Tell me why you really hired me, Nia said. The whole truth. Lucien was quiet for a long moment, then guided her to a nearby bench. They sat, not quite touching, both looking out over the lake. When you walked into my office that day, he began, it felt like the universe was giving me a second chance. At what? At feeling something again. Lucien's voice was soft. After Elise died, I shut down. I focused on work. I pushed everyone away. Olivia, friends, everything. I was hollow. He turned to look at Nia, his expression open and unguarded. And then there you were, with your sketches full of heart and your eyes full of dreams, talking about your mother and your passion for design. So alive, so real. So I reminded you of Elise, Nia said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. No. Lucien shook his head firmly. You reminded me of who I used to be, before grief took everything. He reached out, hesitantly taking her hand. I hired you because your talent is exceptional, because your designs deserve to be seen. That's the truth. And the rest? The late nights, the gifts, the notes. Lucien's fingers tightened around hers. That's the complicated part. I'm listening, Nia said. I'm drawn to you, Nia, in a way I haven't been drawn to anyone in a very long time, maybe ever. His voice was low, intense. But I'm also your boss. I have power over your career, and I would never want you to feel pressured or obligated. Is that why you've kept your distance, why you've never... She trailed off, not sure how to finish the thought. Never what? Lucien asked, his eyes searching hers. Never kissed me, Nia said softly, even though we both know you've wanted to. Something flared in Lucien's eyes, desire, hope, fear, all mixed together. Yes, he admitted. That's why. And now, Nia asked, her heart pounding. Lucien released her hand and stood up, pacing a few steps away before turning back to her. Now I'm trying to do the right thing, to give you space to make your own decisions, to make sure your career isn't tainted by rumors about us. What if I don't want space? Nia stood, moving closer to him. What if I want... There you are, darling. A voice called out, cutting Nia off mid-sentence. They both turned to see Olivia Westbrook approaching, stunning in a white wool coat and red scarf, her blonde hair gleaming in the winter sun. Olivia, Lucien said, his voice cooling several degrees. What are you doing here? I saw your note to Ms. Caldwell last night, Olivia said smoothly. I thought I should join you. After all, we have so much to discuss. You saw my note? Lucien's eyes narrowed. How? Olivia waved a dismissive hand. Details. The point is, I'm concerned about your new protégé. She turned her cold gaze on Nia. Does she know, Lucien, about your pattern? There's no pattern, Lucien said through gritted teeth, and there's nothing to know. Oh, I disagree. Olivia's smile was venomous. Miss Caldwell, did you know that you're not the first young designer Lucien has discovered? There was Elise, of course, his poor sister so determined to prove herself without his help. Don't talk about Elise, Lucien warned, his voice dangerous. Olivia ignored him. And then there was me. Before I built my own company, I was just a talented nobody, until Lucien plucked me from obscurity. He has a type, you see. Vulnerable, ambitious women he can mold and control. That's not true, Lucien said, but Nia could see doubt creeping into his eyes. It wasn't like that with you, and it's not like that now. Isn't it? Olivia challenged. You find these women, offer them the world, make them dependent on you, and then... She trailed off meaningfully. And then what? Nia asked, finding her voice. And then he destroys them, Olivia said simply. When they start to outgrow him, to become their own person, he cuts them loose. Ask him what really happened with Elise. Ask him why she was driving his car that night. Nia looked at Lucien, whose face had gone pale. What is she talking about? She asked. We had an argument, Lucien said, his voice hollow. Elise wanted to launch her own line, separate from Morningstar. I didn't think she was ready. We fought at dinner. She was upset, took my car keys and drove off. He told her she'd never succeed without him, Olivia added. Those were the last words he ever said to her. Nia felt sick. Is that true? Lucien couldn't meet her eyes. Not exactly, but close enough. And what about you? Nia asked Olivia. Did he try to control you too? Oh yes, Olivia said. But unlike Elise, I fought back. I left him, started my own company, and now he sees you as his next project. That's enough, Lucien said, stepping between them. Olivia, this has nothing to do with you. Maybe not, Olivia agreed. But I thought Ms. Caldwell deserved to know who she's really dealing with, the man behind the mask. She turned to Nia. Be careful, dear. His love comes with chains. With that, she walked away, leaving. A heavy silence in her wake. Nia stared at Lucien, who seemed unable to look at her. Is it true? She asked finally. Am I just another woman you're trying to control? No, Lucien said, his voice raw. It's not like that. Not with you. But it was with them? With Elise and Olivia? Lucien sank back onto the bench, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. I loved Elise. I wanted to protect her. But yes, I tried to control her career. I thought I knew what was best. And Olivia? We were engaged. It was not healthy. We brought out the worst in each other. He looked up at Nia, his eyes haunted. I've made mistakes, Nia. Terrible ones. But meeting you, it felt like a chance to do things differently. Nia sat beside him, her mind racing. I need to know the truth, Lucien. All of it. No more half answers. For the next hour, as the winter sun began its early descent, Lucien talked. He told her about growing up wealthy but emotionally neglected, about his parents' deaths and the crushing responsibility of caring for Elise and running the family business at just 22. He spoke about his relationship with Olivia, how it had started with genuine passion but devolved into a power struggle. And he talked about Elise, how he'd both supported and suffocated her, how their final argument had been about her desire to step out of his shadow. The accident was my fault, he said, his voice breaking. Not because I let her drive, but because I made her so upset that she wasn't thinking clearly, because I couldn't let her be her own person. You blame yourself for something you couldn't control, Nia said gently. Don't you see? Lucien looked at her, his eyes damp. I'm doing the same thing with you. Taking over, making decisions, shaping your career. I saw your talent and I claimed it. Just like I did with Elise, just like Olivia said. There's a difference, Nia said after a moment. You didn't ask me what I wanted then, but you're asking now. What do you want, Nia? Lucien asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I want to design, she said simply. I want my collection to succeed. I want to make my mother proud. She paused, gathering her courage. And I want you. Not Lucien Vale, the CEO, not my boss or my benefactor, just you. Lucien stared at her, something like hope flickering in his eyes. Even after everything you've heard. The question is whether you're willing to try something different, Nia said. Whether you can support me without controlling me, whether you can love without possessing. I don't know, Lucien admitted. I want to. I want to be the man you deserve, but I'm afraid of becoming the man I was. Nia took his hand, intertwining their fingers. Then we go slowly, one step at a time. And the company, your collection, people will talk. Let them, Nia said, echoing his words from the night before. My work will speak for itself. Lucien looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward. His lips met hers, gentle and questioning. Nia responded, her free hand coming up to rest against his cheek. The kiss deepened, becoming something warm and promising despite the winter chill around them. When they finally broke apart, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not, Nia agreed with a small smile. But here I am anyway. As they walked hand in hand through the park, neither of them noticed Olivia watching from a distance, her face tight with anger. If she couldn't have Lucien, no one would, especially not some upstart designer from nowhere. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next 2 months were a whirlwind for Nia. By day, she worked frantically on her collection, now titled Everyday Elegance. By night, she and Lucien explored their fledgling relationship, always careful to keep things separate from work. It wasn't easy. There were whispers, of course, sidelong glances and hushed conversations that stopped when Nia entered a room. But she kept her head high and her focus on her designs. And Lucien, true to his word, maintained a professional distance at Morningstar, offering guidance without taking over. I like this, he'd say during their official meetings, indicating a design or a fabric choice. But it's your collection, your decision. Those 3 words, your collection, your decision, became a mantra of sorts, his way of reminding himself and her that this was different from before, that he was trying to change. But not everyone was supportive of their relationship. Olivia Westbrook had begun a whisper campaign, suggesting to industry insiders that Nia's collection was actually Lucien's work, that she was nothing more than a front, a pretty face for his designs. And then, 3 weeks before the collection was set to debut, disaster struck. Nia arrived at the office one morning to find Riley and Zoe waiting for her, their faces grave. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "Alarmed. Someone broke in last night," Riley said. "The design room." Nia pushed past them, running down the hall to the large workroom where her collection was being assembled. When she opened the door, she froze in horror. The room was in shambles. Dresses were torn, fabric shredded, sketches destroyed. Months of work, ruined in a single night. Nia sank to her knees amidst the destruction, picking up a piece of midnight blue silk, all that remained of the evening gown inspired by her mother. "Who would do this?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That was how Lucien found her, kneeling among the ruins of her dreams. Without a word, he crossed the room and gathered her into his arms, holding her as she sobbed against his chest. "I'll fix this," he promised fiercely. "We'll find who did it and make them pay." "It's too late," Nia said, pulling away to look around the room. "The show is in 3 weeks. We can't possibly remake everything in time." "We'll postpone," Lucien said immediately. Nia shook her head. "That slot in Fashion Week, it's impossible to reschedule, you know that." "Then we'll find another solution," Lucien insisted. Together. Security footage revealed a masked figure entering the building using a stolen access card, but their face was never visible to the cameras. The police were called. Reports were filed, but there was little hope of identifying the culprit in time. That evening, Nia sat in Lucien's penthouse, curled up on his sofa as he paced back and forth, making calls and issuing orders. "I've arranged for extra security at all our facilities," he told her, "and I've authorized overtime for anyone willing to help rebuild the collection." "It won't be enough," Nia said dully. "Even with help, we can't remake 15 pieces in 3 weeks. Then we'll do 5. Quality over quantity." Nia looked up at him, a small spark of hope igniting. "You think that would work?" "I think anything you create will be extraordinary," Lucien said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. 5 perfect pieces are better than 15 rushed ones." "People will say I couldn't handle a full collection," Nia warned. "They'll say it proves I'm not ready." "Let them talk," Lucien said firmly. "Your work will silence them." As Nia considered his suggestion, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Olivia Westbrook. "Such a shame about your collection. Perhaps next time you'll think twice before taking what's mine." Nia stared at the message, then wordlessly handed the phone to Lucien. His face darkened as he read it. "She's behind this," he said, his voice cold with anger. "I'll make sure she pays for it." "No," Nia said, taking back her phone. "That's exactly what she wants. To provoke you, to create a scandal, to distract from my work." "We can't let her get away with this," Lucien argued. "We won't." Nia's voice grew stronger as determination replaced despair. "We'll fight back by succeeding. I'll create 5 pieces so extraordinary that no one will question my talent, not even Olivia Westbrook." Lucien looked at her with a mixture of pride and admiration. "You're remarkable, you know that." "I'm stubborn," Nia corrected with a small smile. "My mom always said it would either be my greatest strength or my downfall. In this case, I'm betting on strength," Lucien said, pulling her into his arms. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of Nia's life. She worked day and night, pouring every ounce of her creativity and determination into 5 key pieces that would represent her vision. Lucien was by her side when she needed him and gave her space when she didn't, finding the balance they both needed. The night before the show, Nia put the finishing touches on her centerpiece, a reimagined version of the midnight blue evening gown, now with subtle metallic threads woven through the fabric to catch the light like stars in a night sky. "It's even better than before," Riley said, helping her adjust the hem. "Different," Nia corrected, "but maybe that's okay." As she stepped back to assess the finished collection, Nia felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened tomorrow, she had created something true to herself, something her mother would have been proud of. The morning of the show dawned bright and clear. Backstage was a chaotic mess of models, makeup artists, and stylists. Nia moved through it all in a daze, making last-minute adjustments and giving instructions. Lucien found her just before the show was set to begin, pulling her into a quiet corner away from the commotion. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a pendant, a delicate silver pencil crossed with a needle and thread. "For luck," he said, fastening it around her neck. "Though you don't need it. You're going to be amazing." "What if they hate it?" Nia asked, voicing her deepest fear. "Then they're blind," Lucien said simply. "But they won't hate it. They'll see what I saw the first day you walked into my office. Extraordinary talent." He kissed her, gentle and reassuring. "I love you, Nia Caldwell," he whispered against her lips. "No matter what happens out there today." It was the first time he'd said those words, and they washed over Nia like a wave of warmth. "I love you." "Too," she replied, realizing the truth of it deep in her heart. "Now go show them who you are," Lucien said, stepping back. "I'll be in the front row." Nia took her place at the edge of the runway as the lights dimmed and the music began. One by one, her 5 designs made their way down the catwalk, simple but elegant pieces that celebrated the beauty of everyday women. The applause grew with each model, reaching a crescendo when the final piece appeared, the midnight blue gown shimmering like the night sky. As the show ended and Nia took her bow, she spotted Lucien in the front row, standing and applauding, his face alight with pride. Beside him, Olivia Westbrook sat rigid, her expression tight with displeasure. Backstage was a flurry of congratulations and press interviews. Fashion Weekly, which had been so skeptical, now praised her fresh vision and innovative approach. Buyers from major department stores requested meetings. Even Vivian, the veteran designer, stopped by to offer her approval. "You've got something special, dear," she told Nia. "And I don't just mean talent." She nodded toward Lucien, who was fielding questions from reporters with one eye still on Nia. "Hold on to that one. He's different with you." Later, at the after-party, Nia found a moment of quiet on yet another balcony. The city stretched out below her, just as it had that first night at the Morning Star holiday party, but now it seemed full of possibility rather than intimidation. "There you are," Lucien said, joining her. "The woman of the hour." "Hiding again," Nia admitted with a smile. "You deserve every bit of praise in there," Lucien said, leaning against the railing beside her. "Your collection was breathtaking." "Our collection," Nia corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you." "No," Lucien said firmly. "This was all you, Nia, your vision, your talent, your determination. I just provided the opportunity." He turned to face her fully. "And that's what I want to keep doing. Providing opportunities, not controlling them. Supporting you, not directing you." "You're learning," Nia said, taking his hand. "Because of you." Lucien's voice grew serious. "You walked into my office and into my life by accident, Nia Caldwell. But loving you is the most deliberate choice I've ever made." Inside, the party continued. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: Olivia's jealousy, industry skepticism, the delicate balance of a relationship, amid the pressures of fashion. But for now, on this balcony, there was just the two of them, a woman who had found her voice and a man who was learning to listen. And that, Nia thought as Lucien drew her into his arms, was an offer neither of them had expected, but both had been waiting for all along. The end.